Telegram is a social media app with over 900 million users. It is popular in places where free speech has been suppressed. It's popular in places like Russia. It's popular in places like Iran, India. It's also been popular as a tool to get regular updates outside the world of propaganda in Ukraine. The founder of Telegram is a man named Pavel Durov. He's 39 years old. He's in incredible shape. He seems to be into body hacking. But he also is into privacy. He's into the ability to not have your communications discovered by authoritarians, by governments, by Russia. In fact, Pavel Durov, although Russian and described as the Mark Zuckerberg of Russia, is on the run from Vladimir Putin and Russia. Telegram is, I believe, made Pavel Durov a billionaire several times over. With that money, as opposed to other billionaires, he seems to have acquired strength. He won't turn over the names of accounts, the communications within accounts, even if there's accusations of child pornography, even if there's accusations of ties to ISIS, even if there's accusations of ties to white supremacy. Pavel Durov places privacy and free speech at the top of his value chart, and his billions have only seemed to embolden his devotion to free speech. Yesterday, or earlier this week, when landing at Bourget Airport in Paris, France, Durov was arrested. He was arrested by the French government, and French President Emmanuel Macron said on X that Durov's arrest was in relationship to an ongoing judicial investigation and in no way a political decision. Durov's arrest has led to people like Elon Musk tweeting out hashtag Free Pavel. The French government, like most of the European governments, does not have anything like the United States First Amendment and no cultural devotion to the idea of free speech. The French government, like every European government, thinks that tech companies should bend to the heel of whatever the will of whatever government. Pavel Durov felt differently, and today Pavel Durov finds himself in jail. Why do we talk about a man that not many people have ever heard of on a messaging app that is not as popular as even, say, Signal in the United States or WhatsApp, and certainly not as popular as X or Facebook? Because the same sentiment that leads European governments to arrest a tech billionaire is on the march here in America. Mark Zuckerberg, the founder and CEO of Meta, which is the parent company of Facebook, wrote a letter to the Honorable Jim Jordan, chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the House of Representatives. Mark Zuckerberg said the following in his letter to Congressman Jim Jordan. He said, in 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our team for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our team when we did not agree. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take down content, and we own our decisions, including COVID-19 related changes we made to the enforcement in the wake of this pressure. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. I also think that we made some choices that, with the benefit of hindsight and new information, we wouldn't make today. Like I said to our teams at the time, I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from any administration in either direction. And we're ready to push back if something like this happens again. That is Mark Zuckerberg admitting that Facebook gave into pressures directly from the Biden administration to take down content, even humor and satire, that ran afoul of the administration's wishes when it came to COVID-19. This would, of course, I'm sure, include the origins of COVID, whether or not it came from a laboratory or from a Chinese wet market, the efficacy of vaccines, and other very worthy debates in the public in 2021 that ended up creating untruths, falsehoods, and boxing out the truth. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri took Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas to task over this exact issue. And Mayorkas, and many people look back on this now, with this letter from Mark Zuckerberg, perjured himself in front of Congress. Listen.
We have example after example of this administration coordinated, apparently, according to a federal court, by your agency, pressuring, coercing social media companies to engage in censorship. Is that constitutional?
That is unequivocally false.
Is what the emails show.
It is unequivocally false, Senator.
You are not pressuring the big tech companies to take down accounts. You are not meeting with them to ask them to censor on your behalf.
That is correct. We are not.
That is a lie. That is perjury. That's worthy of more than impeachment. That's worthy of being charged. And this entire exercise, whether or not Mark Zuckerberg has seen the light and decided to be honorable, or he's face-to-face with what Patrick Bet-David of the Patrick Bet-David Show says is an inevitable whistleblower, Mark Zuckerberg has decided to suddenly to tell the truth. And with that, he has put himself, like Elon Musk, directly within the crosshairs of the Biden administration and perhaps a future Harris-Walz administration, who sees these platforms as a threat to their control over the public mindset. People died because they did not know whether or not to wear a mask, whether or not to take a vaccine. No accountability has been accomplished because no one has been able to truthfully have a conversation about whether or not China created COVID in a laboratory. To this very exact moment, to this moment right now, the conversation that we're having on Facebook and on YouTube, I do not know if our content will be suppressed, if our algorithm will be diminished, if the knob will be turned down. Mark Zuckerberg can say that they made mistakes in 2021. Have they corrected their mistakes in 2024? Has the government pressure been alleviated? You cannot, the government cannot force censorship through third parties, and Zuckerberg is admitting they did. And as such, Musk and Zuckerberg put themselves in the same category as Pavel Durov. And you say, well, that's what happens to a man, the tech billionaire CEO of Telegram in Europe, not in America where we have the First Amendment. But this mindset exists in America. Here's a reminder of the debate I had last week on Fox News with Democratic strategist Nomeki Konst about the First Amendment.
If this were a journalistic platform, which it is not, it is a private corporation at the behest of Elon Musk, even if so.
You keep saying that. You keep saying this thing about private corporations.
Well, yes, any lawyer will tell you that.
Platform.
There's a difference.
Well,
yes, it's a private corporation.
I can tell you, Nomiki,
Well,
as an attorney, the
you should
Constitution
know.
provides no extra free speech rights to something deemed a journalistic organization versus a private corporation. There are not tiers to the free speech to the First Amendment of the United States. There are not tiers to the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. Now, that conversation did provoke Mary to give me a call and say this about my behavior on Fox News.
Instead of cutting her off when she needed to be cut off, you need to maintain better control. Sorry to pass out the information. I'm a little bit unhappy with the way, Republicans are.
Sorry to pass on the information, but I need to have better control of the program. That wasn't a sufficient rebuttal for Mary. Who is Mary? More on that coming up here in a moment here on the Will Cain Show. But the point is that mindset exists. It exists on the left, but it also exists within the halls of American government. That X and Facebook aren't journalistic organizations. And journalistic organizations, they are the ones that should have the protection of the First Amendment. Not you, not me, and not the platform that gives voice to you or to me. So before you look at the story of Pavel Durov and Telegram, and his arrest in France, and think it doesn't apply to me in America, think back again about the words of Alejandro Mayorkas. Think back again about the words of Nomeki Konst. And listen one more time to this paragraph from Mark Zuckerberg in his letter to Congress, wherein he says, in a separate situation, the FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 election. That fall, when we saw a New York Post story reporting on corruption allegations involving then Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's family, we sent that story to fact checkers for review, and temporarily demoted it while waiting for reply. It's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation. In retrospect, we shouldn't have demoted the story. We changed our policies and processes to make sure this doesn't happen again. For instance, we no longer temporarily demote things in the U.S. while waiting for fact checkers. Mark Zuckerberg admitting to the election interference that Facebook played in the 2020 election, admitting to lies they told you about COVID. And soon, if we're not careful, they'll be arresting people like Elon Musk who promise us access to the truth.